What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another Lost Skies Skywatch update. It has been just over a month and a half since the last Skywatch, and we are on number 22 already. Let me tell you, our boys and gals have been cooking. As you can probably tell by the thumbnail of this video, the main topic today is none other than Sky Whales, which is covered in depth by Anthony, who explains that it has been another busy month at the Bossa HQ, and that they've been plowing through a massive list of improvements, new features, tweaks, and bug fixes that have been gathered over the past few months from the team, their publisher Humble, and the open development community playing the game, which he also mentions is one of his favorite parts of the development process. Having the chance to play a functioning part of the game and fine-tune it little by little to make it the best version it can be is such a vitally important and amazing contribution. Now, Anthony does go on to explain the experience of what interactions between these sky whales is like in the game, where he points out they're absolutely epic in the skies, and you can hear them from very far away before they gradually appear in the distance, and that these ancient creatures hold a vital resource. However, you will need a ship and the appropriate equipment to rein them in, as we will explain in just a bit here. But he does also mention that they are very much still in early development, but that is definitely another big step in making the world of Lost Skies feel alive, where they provide a little video, which unfortunately has no audio, but beautifully shows off the sky whale and what seems to be its in-game movement while idling, with all of these awesome glowing horns / crystals that make up both the parts of the head and the tops of its back, and even some of the internal framework for the creature's structure at the end as well. But before I move on, I want to quickly go over a few things regarding these sky whales. You see, the idea of these creatures was something that wasn't just conceptual development for the last few months alone, but instead is something that has been long missed and for some forgotten back in the times of Worlds Adrift. But in order to explain that, I need to go back nearly 8 years ago to an interview with a developer from Bossa, Jack Good, a senior artist who went over the topic of sky whales and their development, going on to explain how the concepts for the sky whale for a long time had been conceptualized, but at that time, the internal company view, they were primarily focusing on fleshing out the interactions between their mantas and thuntomites in the existing Worlds Adrift game. Supposedly, there was initially proposed by Luke Williams, the team's lead designer, as an entity that you would only see in Rarity, at least near the beginning of the game, where conceptually you'd be able to capture glimpses of the whales near the bottom of the world within the abyss, where they were initially planned to be peaceful creatures for the most part, unless you were to become a nuisance to them. And as far as implementation is concerned for these creatures in Worlds Adrift, there supposedly was a small Easter egg put in where near the abyss below, if you were lucky, you could hear the whales cry in the far distance. Now, while they were never technically put into Worlds Adrift as a functioning autonomous entity, they actually did in fact appear within the game for a brief time before. This was during the End of World event on July 26 in 2019 that was hosted as a send-off to Worlds Adrift when the servers began to shut down. Now, fortunately, there were a small handful of videos during the time when this went down, and during this actual event, as shown in this video here by a creator named Pebble Garden, they actually did show off a model of the sky whale with a short and brief siren call before closing out the game. And despite this tragic end, nearly 4 years later, we are now able to see what we once thought was lost for good brought back in a more vibrant and stunning detail than ever before. In this public post shared from the Luke leak made a few weeks ago, he goes on to explain that as the development of Lost Skies continues, they are excited to share the latest edition of sky whales, massive and ancient creatures that peacefully swim the skies, filling the air with their haunting whale song, hinting us at the possibility that they may contain vital resources, and that more will be shared in the upcoming Skywatch update. And while at the time there was no further information provided in regards to the development until now, it's absolutely amazing to see both how far the team has come and to finally see a once forgotten dream becoming more and more of a reality. Now, several days ago, I actually shared this publicly released image on the Worlds Adrift Reddit page, where Luke Williams himself responded saying, quote, "Lost Skies has been very cathartic for those still around from the Worlds Adrift team. We're getting to achieve a lot of the things that we strived to do back then, and though people have a right to be skeptical, I hope we're able to bring back the experiences we know that they missed. Which I think more than surmises the emotion that Luke and the dev team still felt when it came to how Worlds Adrift ended, and how through the development of Lost Skies, many of the things the team strived to achieve once before can now have a real opportunity to be realized. But we must move on. There is still more to cover in regards to the updates that the team has put together. Namely, in this case, the shipbuilding, which in my opinion is one of the points of development I'm actually really excited to see unfold in the future. And as Anthony explains it, having your ship as your base is really something that draws people into Lost Skies. It's a place where you could lose yourself trying to create your perfect vision. Over the last month, they've been working on one of the biggest pieces of feedback around making bigger open plan decking options with less pillars, which sounds simple at first thought, but actually requires quite a bit of work to fully flesh out properly. Where they show a small video in what seems to be some sort of temp rendering area, showing off how you can create areas within a simplistic open decked example, without having internal pillars for each segment. Another area being worked on is double-sided material panels, which gives the player the ability to make walls, panels, decks, and ceilings within their ships that look different from each side, which Anthony iterates is another important component that will allow the player to feel as though you are building what is truly your ship, and that you aren't constrained by any of your tool's limitations. Where they provide a video showing off the implementation, which he notes doesn't include any of the UI or UX features that the game will have before release, but shows the visual representation of what can be done, where you get to see them place wooden wall panels and metal panels on opposing sides, which gives you that additional aspect of making strong and sturdy exterior for your ship, while still be able to maintain and make the internals of your ship look as much to your liking as desired. Making ships look good is also very important in this respect. The dev's art team has been putting together some fantastic add-ons for your ship of what I imagine would be more early game assets for the first region. Here they share a great picture of the different types of components, each with some mossy, rusted visuals, and what looks like wing attachments and even wiring and piping, and even what looks like either lights or the ends of small engines on the back of a wooden panel. Additionally, we also got what seems like a spiked spear-headed sail or possibly a wing attachment as well on the bottom right. We also get to see some pictures of figureheads that can be placed on the bow of your ship, with both some wooden and metal variations, and even one of a human caricature wearing an estranged helmet, likely representing one of the different ancient groups or civilizations that once existed in the distant past within Lost Skies. Going back briefly to the topic of sky whales, as we mentioned initially, these whales will contain vital resources. However, you will need more than just a ship in order to acquire these resources. The important tool is the ship harpoon, which the devs provide an awesome looking concept art for, with a few different colorized renditions and angled viewpoints showing off some of the optional bronze or iron styles that they can move forward with. Also noting how they want the spool or reel casing to slightly shift back when it is fired or reeled in. Lastly, for the shipbuilding, the team has been working on VFX for some of the guns/cannons. As you can see in the video here, again I apologize there's no provided audio here for the cannon, but regardless you can see the beautiful looking sparks flying as the cannon ammo shell is fired through the night sky. The next topic covered is sky travel. After you build your ship, believe it or not, you will want to fly it, which again needs to feel as though you would expect it to. In this capacity, there is a ton of physics working in conjunction in this respect, but as Anthony explains here, you want the materials you build your ship with and the equipment you add to it to be big factors in how nimble, agile, and strong your ship is. We then have to get that feeling across to the player when they fly their ship, so a ton of work has been done in this area over the past month, likely in the scope of balancing ratios and optimizations for different aspects of what should be a reasonable advantage/disadvantage taken when using the different types of components and material scaling. They also have been working on how weaponry feels once in an actual battle and the damage these weapons is dished out. Again, as he explains, they want the players to feel power, weak, or strong depending on the different weapon choices that they put onto their ships. Where the devs provide two small GIF videos showing two players in a game together, where one person is firing a cannon and the other is standing idle watching, and how you can see the visual shake from both players, which helps the immersion of both characters feel the firepower regardless of who's actually the the one pulling the trigger. Next, we have UI/UX developments. These are some of the lesser considered elements of any game that often aren't much addressed as any sort of major addition. However, despite this, working to create a menu interface that feels good in the game can be a vital component in the development of any game, especially Lost Skies, where they state that this month the team has been improving upon their build screens, trying to unify the flow and function of different menu options to reduce the additional button presses and needed clicks for navigating to what is wanted. Now, I do want to apologize for the low quality of the images here, as it seems there were some issues either on the site or with the upload. It seems they were posted with a very low resolution, not in a PNG format, so scaling of the size of these to be easier to read will be drastically reducing the quality, although I will do my best to make sure that these are easier to see in post. But at least based on the image posted here, we can see the depictions of different options within the building menu and a handful of in-game items, including Cyborian plant beds and some kind of specimen jar, and even what looks like the mounted trophies of deer heads and some other creature as well. Where below much of the text we get to see the associated Gaul script below the different names and game icons. Lastly, on the UI front, we get an image of the ARC computer interface. Now, in case you might remember, this was covered with an initial run of concept art from a modeling standpoint. However, as of now, we currently don't know what the device will assuredly look like, aside from the information regarding the crashed ARC ship that was concepted in a past Skywatch and made a gray box placeholder model for. And as far as the information surrounding the Gaul society that made these lifeboats in a lore perspective, we still only know that these arcs were created as a means to save humanity. And since we are now being told that the ARC computer will be a hugely important tool throughout the game, I would assume or guesstimate that it might possibly have to do with researching components, as in the text it has writing showing Cyborian data disks with icons of what looks like ship engines, cannons, and wings. The last of the topics we are covering is windfalls. One of the big barriers in Lost Skies between the different regions is the weather walls, where it's explained that simply taking a small ship and trying to cross into a new region isn't just going to happen, but that you need to search for effective resources, find schematics, and build and craft different parts to properly make them strong enough to handle the powerful forces of the walls you traverse across. And as Anthony explains here, the windfalls are a part of the epic travel that climaxes to your time in a region and the story of a new region's beginning, which is really hard to build visually in a world like Lost Skies, especially when it contains fully dynamic cloud systems and isn't just using a normal skybox, but they have in fact managed to do so. And it is in fact being added this month as well, where unfortunately they only share one image depicting what I assume is the wind wall, and state that this is only some of what they have been working on this month, but that they're going to hold back due to a bigger update on the sky bosses. Again, I imagine they mostly don't want to share everything they are doing in order to help not spoil everything all at once and allow for more surprises in the future. Now, while this is the end of the Skywatch, I actually have a few more images / a video to share with you in case you stayed until the end. These are namely known as Luke Leaks, and in summary, Luke has been known to leak a handful of videos / images in the Lost Skies General Discord, which I'm going to quickly show again now. The first of which is from all the way back at the very end of May, where he shared a stunning photo in-game which depicts all the amazing looking clouds and sun shafts, where Luke says that he was working on some sail stat balancing, which is just absolutely gorgeous, and the last of which is from the very end of last month, that being a video titled A Familiar Sight.mp4, which depicts someone flying by in an idle ship and firing multiple rounds at the other ship hovering in the sky, which clearly seems to call back to our long remissed times in Worlds Adrift. Now, if you want to be able to see these Luke leaks and possibly become selected for the open development community, I highly recommend you join the Lost Skies Discord, which I'll make sure to have linked below. But regardless, I hope you have enjoyed, and I hope this update has gotten you at least somewhat excited for what is in store for Lost Skies. I know I'm aching to see those sky whales and hear their haunting song, but regardless, I thank you all once again for simply being here, as well as the awesome development team for putting countless hours into making this game even one step closer to something that's truly amazing. And like always, have a beautiful rest of your day, boys. Peace.